Internet radio.
Oh my gosh. Alright, well, um, hey, welcome to this odd podcast talking about the future, what we think might be coming. I got a jaded individual here. He is an American of an age of elder and lives in Texas. That is the best description you will get of my friend here. Anyways, how are you doing tonight? Would you like to introduce yourself, say anything?
Hello. I will just give out my handle, which is Butternut99.
Okay.
I'm from Texas. Lived here all my life. Quiet living is what I'm looking for. That's about it.
Well, I asked you to come here today because of this project I've got where I need to talk about what we think is going to be going on in the future after all this coronavirus, quarantine is over and the world starts to return to how it was before. How do you think the future could look, whether it were to go positive or negative? I think I want to go with the positive first. What do you think is the best that can come out of this?
Well, the positive is hopefully it'll bring us together as a people. We'll be able to rebuild our infrastructure back to normal. It won't turn out like, this video game here that we are in.
Yeah.
The negative is that this thing created too much fear. It's gonna be a long time before people start trusting people again.
Oh, that is true. Especially, it's gonna take a while with stocks and people returning to that because they don't know how it's gonna look.
Well, it's not just that. In the sense of the negative in this was it showed how greedy our own society is. How with the toilet paper issue, hoarding food, everything. A lot of resources were wasted during this event.
Oh, so many. And then people seriously tried to profit off of each other, and I think it really did. You're right, there is going to be that certain level of, oh lord, there's going to be that certain level of distrust between people, because they won't really necessarily expect to rely on each other in the future if another thing like this would happen. They'd almost act almost faster,
Yeah, it's gonna be rough these next couple of years, definitely.
I just hope that whenever this virus comes back, because it probably will be making a round trip, I hope it's not going to be as bad and that we'll have a better procedure against it to at least have people not dying to where they can go home.
Oh, on that note, I don't think, honestly, I don't think it is as bad as everyone says it is. Granted, there are people that have died from it, but it seems to me, now this is only my perspective of it, or perception of it, anyway, if that's the right word to say, only the rich are worried about it. That's it.
That is true.
The wealthy population is the only people worried about it. The workers, lower class, middle class, don't really seem to care. Now, granted, they do take precautions. The older.
Well, I do know that families definitely care when they're in the middle class and such, because they have to feed their family and also pay for whatever housing they have depending on where they are.
Well, yeah, that this whole thing kind of destroyed that middle class, and it really destroyed the middle class. Definitely destroyed lower class. It's going to impact all the way down. So it's just.
I think that looking into the future, we might actually see something to where we are at least if something like this were to happen again in the future with the pandemic, we'd at least have a generation that had gone through a pandemic like this and was able to record what
Well,
they
we've already
did.
been through a pandemic like this.
Well, I mean, like something with this many deaths,
I
like
never
this long
imagined
to
that.
where
I mean,
it's been
it's
taken out of
honestly, to
schools
tell you
and
the truth, it's really not that many deaths. The Spanish flu pandemic that we had took way more lives than the coronavirus pandemic. It's still our number one death toll on the list, if you want to call it that.
yeah. I
Spanish,
mean,
yeah,
I
we
meant
weren't
like
ready.
more worldwide rather than just in one secluded area. Seems like the whole world was put on pause with this one.
Well, yes, but we're, that's a bigger picture we don't really want to wrap our heads around at this point in time.
You know, it just makes me that makes me worry what would happen if something really bad were to happen, how we would try to handle it.
You're looking at it right here. Just look out to your left and you will see it.
I mean, I guess you do have a point, but I don't think it would get that bad. Especially if it wasn't between people. I don't think nukes and stuff would happen
Well,
in the Civil War, but maybe in between countries, that is what would happen.
well, war is inevitable when it comes to this, especially during pandemics or high crisis issues. But I call it the evolution. You know, it's our species time to go. It's our species time to go. There's nothing gonna stop it.
I can see you're taking a very pessimistic or realistic view of it, and I can see
Well,
where you're coming from.
it's. I mean, well,
How it
realistic
is.
view is the best way to do it. I mean, there's no way to slice it at this point. I mean, we've seen so much damage been done to in just a short period of time. You know, between people,
Yeah,
not just from the
we
virus,
can't
just
sugarcoat it anymore, you know.
yeah. I mean, our borders needed to be closed temporarily, if anything. The same way, you know, the Europeans did. They closed their borders. Nobody could go in and out. And, you know, we did a good job of doing it. You know, it's not that, like, we didn't want people to come to the U.S. It was more like we just needed to find a measure.
Yeah, pause
when
and
to-
handle what was going on
Yeah.
before we just let people keep going through.
But at the same time, you know, it's usually stuff like this. It's all about money. Even if there's a vaccine, we're gonna get charged for it in some way. And honestly, I wouldn't take it. You know, I'm A immune. I'm not gonna take something that might get me sick. For those who are already sick, you know, it'd probably be the best thing to take. You know, it might help them get over the virus faster. But as far as, you know, people like me, you know, who donate plasma, who have high antibodies in their system, you know, I think we should get some kind of, you know, I don't know, maybe a tax break, if anything.
That's
In a sense
good,
of,
yeah.
well, I'm not saying like, you know, like a permanent one. I'm talking about like, you know, all the times we went and donated plasma during this crisis, you know, that exposed us to the, you know, the rest of the world.
Yeah,
You know, you're
it's
sitting there
interesting
with an
you talk
IV.
about that, by the way. Because, I mean, I actually recently signed up to do that as well. I recently signed up to donate blood and to also donate things like bone marrow and plasma, things like that for whenever patients need it. If they find a match, at least, with me. So, recently I put in a test and now they just look for a match, and if there was a point in time where I were to go in for a bone marrow transplant for somebody else, I would have I would now be called in because I took the test to be called in for that. And I wonder if I were to go in at a time like this, where it's all quarantined and you're supposed to stay at home, and you know your job can kind of it might not. Who knows? With your insurance, it could be something that isn't covered, things like that. I'm not sure how that all works at this one time. But I do feel there should be a break, especially whenever it's all chaotic like this. I mean, the hospitals still do have to get to work. When there's people with cancer who still need help, and you know, people who need, you know, transplants, you know, for organs and such, you know, emergency things, that needs to still be available, you know. I think that if we keep going in the future with this, we might see more of a push for cheaper healthcare, or something that might go for wider bearings because of you know, all the I've been seeing a lot of the minority has been affected by this rather than rich people, because they don't have as much of the
yes and no
access,
resources.
Yeah, especially the homeless. Where we should if we have more public, you know, I don't know, facilities for that. That one's more complicated though, because it comes to the question of how would you even build that, and what would you do, who would pay for it.
I mean, we got it built.
Taxpayer.
It's just the problem is it's not whether, you know, we have it. It's if they want it.
It is true. You
know, most people don't. Most homeless men and women don't go to shelters, even though it's offered. Take a free shower, get free food. I mean, it's not that it's not being offered, it's just not being used. It's honestly not being maintained the way it should be. But, you know, those are problems we can only fix when you fix the big issue. You know, the big issue is money. It's gotta come from somewhere.
Oh yeah, definitely.
At this point, you know,
nothing's for free.
Exactly. And we're not making any money as a country because we can't seem to, I think, can't get away from the things that cost us the most money, you know. Yeah. Whether it be gas or, like, homes. I mean, housing right now is ridiculously cheap, but that's only because of the downsizing.
That is true.
Once it goes back
also
up,
with
you know,
the national debt, which is very scary for.
Well, that's
how I look
that's
at it.
never
going to
change.
How it's really gonna. Yeah, that's what I'm like. It's never gonna change, but how is it gonna affect me? And I don't know if I'm at a point where it'll actually do anything, or if it's just gonna be like that lingering fear of just national debt.
You might as well ignore that because it's not ever gonna change.
I just can't shake these nightmares.
It's only gonna grow more and more and more.
It's the American way.
It's the last time I think on record the national the debt, when it actually dropped, is when we actually went to World War, and that's only because our manufacturing plants went super crazy.
Oh yeah,
that's just
true.
On record.
And then we got put into this whole manufacturing.
I'm not saying war is the best way for our economy, but that's, you know, our country was bred in war. You know, I mean, we are a warring nation. It's just we're one of the most powerful nations on the planet. You can't deny it. We're not the most powerful. No, I'm just playing. But we're talking about weapons. You know, we are a country of, you know, many freedoms, and weapons is one of them.
Yeah. Weapons are one of them.
Yes. It's, you know, there are many people out there who think they know guns. You know, like that governor who was like, this is an automatic rifle that, you know, can shoot 800 bullets a second, which I've never seen a clip that can launch 800 bullets a second without having to reload, but yeah, sure.
Well, he was talking about an AR-15 too, which is not possible at all.
Yes, an AR-15 rifle is it's a hunting rifle. That's all it's for. I mean, it's It's a good home defending rifle.
I
It's
feel
just a
like
good quality rifle.
it also has
It's a
to do
good
with, you know,
all-around
like
rifle.
it
There's
might
a lot of
also have to
different-
do with, you know, the like it's all dramatized in movies and such as to what guns and weapons can actually do. Like in video games like this, I mean, the weapons are insane. Like, jeez.
Well, that's where the worlds separate right there. It's a video game. It's not
Yeah.
real. We are here to get away from real life.
Yeah, and that's
We're
where I
here to
feel like some
do-
people like don't understand that there's the difference. There is the barrier, and not a lot of people actually take, you know, time to look at that. I feel, and they take it into politics, and they just have this uneducated view of it when they should take the time to really get to know what they're talking
Well,
about before.
Therein lies your problem right there. The educated view. Our education system, let me rephrase that, is kind of crappy. If you want to say anything, they've taken away courses that I grew up with, and y'all will never learn, like home ec. Like
Well, we
most
have
of your
culinary.
generation. Well, I mean, home ec taught you basic life skills. Like even though, yeah, it was a girly class, there was a lot of girls in there. Yeah, so what? It taught you basic life skills, like how to clean, how to, you know, maintain a home, how to fix stuff, how to, you know, how to cook food on your own. You know, most men your age don't know how to cook or prepare a steak, which that's the one thing they should know how to cook. I mean, if anything, that's like the easiest thing to cook out of all the meats. If you can't cook a steak on a grill, you're messed up in the head.
Yeah.
I've-
Tonight I had empanadas, homemade empanadas with beef and potatoes stuck inside, with rice and refried beans, and so I cooked that, so I'm good.
He's making me hungry.
So I think at least there's one thing about the quarantine is that I'm learning how to cook more.
Yeah,
I'm
but
having a good time
They
doing
also
it, too.
need more survival skills. Like when I was growing up, they had
Oh,
like
definitely.
survival
We don't have
camp,
enough. I was thinking to myself, man, what if the end of the world does come?
Scouts, like scouts is like disappearing. Like
Oh, yeah,
Boy Scouts. I mean,
definitely.
granted, it's disappearing because the government won't step aside, you know, to let us deal with the pedophiles. It's the same thing with the
Yeah.
church. Either step up or get out of the way. You know, either
Yeah.
let us handle it or you need to do something about it. And then at that point in time, if something like that were to happen, great men and women would return to those facilities. You know,
That is
you know,
true.
they'd
They'd
be
inspire
teaching these
new
kids stuff.
generations, you know?
Yes.
I
But-
always wanted to do that when I was a kid, and I never got the chance to do it.
I mean, I got to do it for a while, but I learned enough to, you know, especially like making a fire. You make a fire without matches. You know, I know how
Oh,
to
I don't even know how to do
survive. It's complicated.
that.
It's hard. It's a lot
I
of
know
time.
how to do it
but
like with the battery, but other than that, if
Yeah,
I don't
I
have a
would keep
battery, then I'm
standing up.
screwed.
I
I don't
care
know.
to keep standing up.
If you move your analog stick, it does that. Anyways, that's where, like, yeah, I mean, what do you think would have happened if this all went haywire? What do you think if people started freaking out and fighting over toilet paper and stupid things like that at the beginning? Do you think at some point it would all the fighting would stop and there'd be this kind of public shame of what happened, or do you think it just
No.
really go haywire?
No, there's another thing that's not been taught to, I want to say, the younger generation, because I'm also part of that generation. But I was taught humility. You know, in my family, there is no hierarchy. Now, granted, we have our elders, which are, you know, they led us until the day they pass, but, you know, when you're up, you're in the game. There's no hierarchy. You know, everybody makes fun of everybody. You know, you learn to deal with the problems every day. Everyday problems. Let's put it that way. Yeah, everyday problems. You learn to deal with it. You know, most people nowadays they throw tantrums. Adults. These are adults that are like throwing themselves on the ground like toddlers and just
Yeah.
screaming bloody murder because somebody said something. I mean, like, they're words. They mean nothing. If you don't like them, move on. Go change them. Go do something. Go voice your opinion. But crying and throwing fits on the ground, they don't do nothing. It doesn't do nothing.
It's just a needless stress. Just
Exactly. It's stress. It's stress on everybody, and it
and
doesn't do
there's
anything
no need
because
for it. It doesn't help anybody. And
well, it's not just that. They deliberately stop progress.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
they throw themselves on the ground, and then I don't want to do
out of
anything.
spite for no
Yeah.
good reason. There's never a good reason for it. And it's just one of the things where you have to take. If you find yourself in that situation, you seriously need to, you know, look yourself in the mirror and think what you're doing with, you know, your choices, because you have to find that at some point you need to grow up and learn that words are just words, and that the only time they have power is when you give them power.
Well, I'm reminded of what George Carlin said before he went. He said that once we started making words softer, I guess is the proper term for it, soft language. It's when things kind of went south. Things went soft in the sense of like post-traumatic stress disorder, right?
Yeah.
That used to be called shell shock. You know, from his own words, it sounds like the guns themselves. You know, just when you say post-traumatic stress disorder, it just sounds like a bland name for something that's very tragic to a person in a sense
Yeah.
of, you know, the trauma they went through. But if you say that person has shell shock, you know, you feel like, oh man, they've been through something. They've had their nerves just stretched to the limit. You know, we start making things bland by calling them different things, and you know, we lose sight of what they really are.
Yeah.
You know, it's more like a washed ideal of what it is.
It starts to become a cookie cutter version of what you think it should be, rather than something true. You know?
Exactly.
And I
It's
find
shorter words.
that I find that society is best in its best shape when it finds that most of its people are being true to themselves, because they accept more truth. And I think society over time has gotten more humbled in, you know, existence and what they think they're here for. And I think that some people are starting to realize that it's not a whole, you know, like, there is science, there's a logical explanation for things, you know, and how things are. And not to make it controversial, it's just that as time has gone on and more technology has grown, and, you know, a higher rate of life, you know, people, you know, it's a lower death rate, you know. And
Well,
people have, as technology goes on and people have gone to live longer and see more things and live different lives, it's humbled humanity more, I feel.
well, yes, that's all good, but there needs to be change. Change has to be inevitable. So far, our system hasn't changed in over,
That is
I don't know,
true. It hasn't
let's say
so
75
long.
years. It's, you know, the national. Let's put it this: the cost of living has gone up 300% in my lifetime. That's my lifetime. That's 33 years. Now, if you compare, like, say, me to Josh, his cost of living has gone up almost 500% in his lifetime. That's from the early 30s all the way up to now. It's
Why?
ridiculous.
Is it just gonna keep going
Well,
up?
yeah, it's going to keep going up because there's no middle ground anymore for, like I said, you have
in
the rich,
California,
you
it's
have the
crazy
mild
right
rich,
now.
you have the poor. Yeah, that's all you got. There's no in between. There's always going to be three levels to this pyramid, no matter what. There's people who do well. There's people who don't do well. There's going to be a little bit of winners and a whole lot of losers. That's just the way it is. It's life. But the system itself needs to change to, I guess, what I'm trying to say is it needs to change
To
with
accommodate
the times.
these flaws, it needs to.
Yeah, to accommodate.
The changes in life that are gonna happen, because as life goes on, the standards of life and how people feel they should live are gonna change. Because
Yes.
at this point in time, more people feel they have more control over what they should, how their government should be, and I mean that is at least here in America. And it's always been that way, but at this point in time, it's gotten to the point where people are, they get visibly, extremely, like, upset and crazy. It's the craziest stuff I've seen on the internet and such. And, I hope that we can get through this and at least through the quarantine not ever have to deal with something that insane again.
Well, it's not going to change unless parents themselves.
That is
change it.
true,
Yeah.
It starts in the
'Cause these
house
kids,
and in the school.
You kids are seeing this, your parents act this way, and then you yourself think it's okay. And then that's where the issue lies right there. It lies with the parents, no matter what. How a child turns out, it's always the parent,
True.
no matter what. I mean,
Alright,
it's
well,
not child's fault.
Yeah, it's no. Well, I mean, sometimes, at some point in time, the child's old enough to, make their own choice. But even then, it does also depend heavily on how they were raised and how it's begun. But they need to also, at some point in time, see the changes for themselves. Anyways,
Yes.
I'm gonna cut it there because I believe that's good enough time. We've had a good enough chat, and I hope it's not too much and not too little. But I want to thank you for helping me out with this, and hopefully this will be good enough for my final English project, and
No problem. If your English class always wants to hear the tunes from the Fallout Nation.
oh my god.
I'll say the thoughts from the Fallout Nation.
Yes.
The rest of the people in here are my conscious. Anyways, thank you, and yeah.
The crazy conscience part, awesome.